I'm tired of people, this is coming from a fighter, but you guys shouldn't be overpaying fighters. Because then it makes them not want to actually perform. And especially when you have fights lined up for your next fight and all that stuff, right? It's sad, like, oh, all I got to do is fucking survive this fight for a next paycheck. It is really messing up the sport. It's like, you guys got to do it like the UFC does. Like, you do a shit performance, fuck y'all ain't getting no damn money. And that's why it's taking away the hunger of these fighters, where it's like, well, they got a guaranteed check next. That's why all these motherfuckers keep protecting their I'm undefeated. Like, look, I have 2 losses, right? Most of my losses come from big fights, but it's never derailed anything. I'm still here. They can't take me away. Unlike these other dudes, they want to protect their they want to be like, oh, it's not enough money, so I'm not going to fight all this stuff. These guys, they all only fight for money, and it's sad, and it's destroying the sport. All that undefeated shit, that don't mean shit if you're not fighting nobody. Nobody gives a fuck about you.
There was a lot of truth to what Rolly said, and I feel like most of what was said with Devin Haney in mind, because he's the unbeaten one. He's the one who got overpaid for underperforming. The whole world is reacting to Devin Haney's stinker, Bob Arum among them saying,
"Look at Haney. He looked terrible with Ramirez. Absolutely, he looked gun-shy and afraid to take another big shot. You see that? Who's gonna want to see Haney fight if he fights that way? If Haney fights Rolly the way he did Ramirez, he doesn't win. I've seen Haney in a lot of fights, and I've never seen him fight this way. Based on fighting the way he did versus Ramirez, and what Rolly showed fighting Garcia, I would pick Rolly."
Devin has become the poster child for overpaid fighters in the postmodern era. Is it the way Rolly says it is? Should the fighters be paid less? Should they be paid based on how they perform? All Devin really is a byproduct of a bigger problem that's been going on for years now. A beneficiary, I should say, because he's benefited from it. But it didn't start here today. It didn't start with Turkey LL Sheik. Fighters have been overpaid for years now, and it didn't start with Turkey. It didn't start with DAZN entering into the American market either. Where it all started was years ago, upon the inception of the PBC, and all the Waddle and Reed money they burned through. That set the modern template for today's pay scale, and why some fighters are perhaps being paid too much. Asking for too much. Creating instability within the boxing sphere. It's infrastructure. That if this is what it costs to get these guys to do their job, doing fights is becoming increasingly more risky, increasingly more expensive, not just to the promoters, but to the customers. Hence the influx of pay-per-views we've been seeing the last 10 years. There never used to be this many. Ever. To where now every man, woman, and his dog with boxing gloves and a gum shield thinks they belong on pay-per-view. It's abuse. Overuse of the pay-per-view model. The bit Rolly mentioned about unbeaten fighters and maintaining your O, that bit was true too, because Devin Haney still has his O intact, but who actually wants to see him? Jermall Charlo is still an unbeaten fighter here today, but who cares? The Mayweather era is over, and being an unbeaten fighter isn't all it's cracked up to be. It all depends on who you fight, not just who you fight, but how you fight.
Why ain't y'all asking them for Devin and Shakur? Both of them move around. Y'all want them to keep fighting guys who got to come and do all. No, make them do something. They want to get paid the most money, and they got the boringest damn style. I don't want to see that shit, man.
Floyd Mayweather in his time, lulled some of the boxing community into a trance where they think that being a sugarfoot fighter is the only way to be. And that lasted throughout his era. He convinced a lot of people.
But it's over for that. People are waking up and realizing you don't tune into boxing to watch a guy do laps around the ring.
Movement has its place within the sport, but for guys who fought like Devin on Friday or William Skull on Saturday, nobody wants to see that. Don't give me the hit and not get hit bullshit, the sweet science bullshit. This is supposed to be entertaining, and those fights were not entertaining. And it's not because of the guy coming forward trying to make it a fight. It's because of the guy staying on the outside who don't want to take no chances. If you don't want to take no chances and you don't want to get hit, then you shouldn't box.
Said it in my previous video.
I'm not saying these guys gotta go out there like a couple of Neanderthals and club each other in the center of the ring. You can move, you can slip, you can roll, you can counter, you could do a lot of things. But if it's to the point where you don't want to risk anything and you're staying so far on the outside of the guy, it's not even a fight, then don't fight.
Don't box.
I don't know what the future holds for Devin Haney. Now that he's campaigning as a welterweight, there was something to what Bob Arum said, that if this is how he's gonna fight moving forward,
That if you fought Rolly the way you fought Jose, you might lose.
I never thought I'd hear myself say that, but there is something to it, that if this is all you have to offer the sport of boxing now, you might as well retire, because that was an important performance. It was supposed to be.
All you showed us is Ryan did a lot of damage to you. A lot. Enough that you don't want to engage. You don't want to risk anything.
Then don't. Retire. Because I could go the rest of my life without seeing a boxing match like that one.
Elsewhere in the welterweight division, I'm sure that you've heard by now, Manny Pacquiao is ending his retirement to face Mario Barrios for his WBC title.
Boxing superstar Manny Pacquiao will end his nearly 4-year retirement to face Mario Barrios for the WBC welterweight title on July 19th in Las Vegas, sources confirmed to ESPN on Thursday. The fight will be available via PBC on Prime pay-per-view, as I expected.
There was a blurb a few days ago that it wasn't going to be a pay-per-view, but I didn't believe it. There's no way Manny Pacquiao is coming out of retirement to fight for peanuts on the dollar, and the only hope of getting him the kind of money that he's looking for is on pay-per-view.
Manny Pacquiao, 46, last fought in August of 2021 when he lost the unanimous decision against Yordenis Ugas for the WBA super title. After the loss, Pacquiao announced his retirement on social media to focus primarily on his political career. But boxing's first and only 8-division world champion has kept his eye on the sport that made him a household name. Rumors of his return have circulated over the past year. In July of last year, Pacquiao competed in an exhibition boxing match against kickboxer Rikuya Enpo at Super Risen 3. Pacquiao's name has been tied to a return fight with Barrios since late last year. Since last week's Canelo vs. Skull fight in Saudi, WBC President Mauricio Suleiman told Boxing King Media that the plan was for Barrios to defend the title against Pacquiao this summer, while also noting Pacquiao had already been cleared to compete by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. The World Boxing Council has written rules that state a former champion is allowed to request a title fight after coming out of retirement.
At this time, Mario Barrios is going to face Manny Pacquiao in July, Suleiman said. It's a tremendous fight.
Boxing's first and only 8-weight champion is set to be inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame next month. He is also in the midst of a very close Senate race in the Philippines, where he previously served as a senator from 2016 to 2022. According to Brunch Boxing, Pacquiao won't formally announce his return to boxing until after the election on May 12th. However, all signs and sources point to Pacquiao's announcement being a formality, as his return to boxing is imminent.
No quality control. That's what immediately comes to mind, that while the Nevada State Athletic Commission may have cleared Manny Pacquiao to fight, even at his age, and the World Boxing Council may have it written in their rules, their bylaws, that a former champion can fight for a title,
how do you expect Manny Pacquiao to look at 46 years old? Did any of you actually see him last year when he boxed Rikuya Enpo? He's a shadow of his former self, and after 2 or 3 years of inactivity, close to 4, you're gonna let him fight for a title?
Fighting out of San Antonio, Texas, Barrios last fought against Abel Ramos on the undercard of Jake Paul's decision win, over Mike Tyson. He won the interim WBC title in September of 2023 when he outpointed Ugas and was elevated to full champion in June of last year after Terence Crawford was designated as the WBC's champion in recess. After he moved up to junior middle to face Israel Madrimov, Barrios' only 2 losses have come to Gervonta Davis and Keith Thurman.
In the co-main event, there will be a rematch between unified junior middleweight champion Sebastian Fundora and Tim Kazoo. The two previously met on March 30th of last year. Zoo was originally scheduled to face Keith Thurman, but an injury had forced Thurman out less than 2 weeks before the scheduled date. Fundora stepped in on short notice and won a split decision.
That might actually be the reason that I buy this pay-per-view, because I do want to see that fight.
However, the idea that a 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao is coming out of retirement, for me, is not cause for celebration, because I know what this heralds. Win or lose. That if Manny Pacquiao actually does beat Mario Barrios, do you know what this means for the welterweight division?
Don't matter if he beats Barrios or not. Still, Rolly Pacquiao. How many losses does Pacquiao have? Oh, that's another thing, bro. Pacquiao another one that don't give a about losses, and everyone keep tuning in for him, right? Bro, all that undefeated that don't mean if you're not fighting nobody. Nobody gives a about you. There's so many bigger fights for me. Like, would I rather fight, I don't know, for instance, a Pacquiao or Jerome Ennis? What's a bigger fight for me? What fight would sell more? Me and Broner or me and Jerome Ennis? Obviously, me and Broner. What would sell more? Me and Ryan again or me and Jerome Ennis? What would sell more? Tank coming up to fight for his fourth division, or me and Jerome Ennis? It's just basic, you know. What's the bigger fight for? Like, it's not. I'm not even talking about money. The money. What's a bigger fight for the boxing world?
So now do you understand why this isn't good? This isn't good for boxing. This isn't good for the division. If Manny Pacquiao actually wins the WBC title, what do you think? That he's going to go on an undisputed run at 46? That he wants to fight young gunners like Brian Norman or Jaron Ennis? Those guys aren't on his radar the same way they're not on Rolly's radar. And what you're going to get is a lot of young guys lining up to fight a has-been. A 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao. Did you hear the names that Rolly mentioned? That he would rather fight Broner than Jaron Ennis. He would rather fight Manny than Jaron Ennis.
So that means the WBA putting that trinket title on the line didn't really mean very much.
Because Rolly's not going to use it as a segue to a Jaron Ennis fight. He's more focused on fighting washed-up boxers. Because what is Adrian Broner if not washed up?
Did everybody forget that Blair Cobbs fought Adrian Broner in a goddamn shoebox?
Promoted by Don King, and that wasn't big for boxing. That wasn't big for the division. So why would Rolly fighting that same Broner be big for the division? When Ugas fought Pacquiao back there in 2021, it didn't do astronomical numbers, just north of 200,000. It wasn't big for boxing. It wasn't big for the division. So why would Manny, 4 years later...
Just call it what it is. Rolly only wants to fight washed-up boxers.
That's why I don't think of the boxers as being noble just because they're boxers. Oh, they're so brave. They're so courageous. Look at them.
Yeah, maybe if we're talking about Usyk, or maybe if we're talking about Inouye, those kinds of guys that are cut from that cloth, that a Rolly is not cut from.
A Rolly is an opportunist. Like so many other boxers that are out there, there's nothing noble about them. There's nothing courageous. You just want to fight a bunch of has-beens because you know you're low-hanging fruit for Brian Norman and you're low-hanging fruit for Jaron Ennis. And if the Manny Pacquiao of old, the one who beat the hell out of Cotto and the one who beat the hell out of Margarito, if he were here today, you wouldn't want to fight him either. You only want to fight him now because he's an old man.
If the Manny Pacquiao of old were here, you'd avoid him too. Because you're not a legacy fighter. You're not anything. And that's what's wrong with the American boxing scene. What Rolly didn't say about all these fighters that are being overpaid to underperform is that They're American.
That's who you're talking about. You're not talking about the Eastern Europeans like Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev. They delivered. You're not talking about a giant Chinaman in Zile Zhang. Win or lose, he performs. The same applies to Agit Kabayel. The same applies to Martin Bacoli, to Efe Ajagba.
It applies to the Brits, like Callum Smith and Joshua Buatsi. It applies to Fabio Wortley. It applies to Fraser Clark, Daniel Dubois, Anthony Joshua.
There are so many international fighters that have already participated on Turkey shows and been paid big money to do it, but they delivered. They held up their end of the bargain. It's not till Turkey brings aboard a bunch of Americans that things take a turn for the worst. I haven't had an issue with most of Turkey shows until the Times Square show.
And there were no international fighters on that show. They were all Americans, and look at what you got.
Well, it is true that there are fighters that are being overpaid that should not be, and those fighters are Americans, because a lot of the American fighters are not legacy fighters. Rolly isn't. Ryan isn't.
Maybe Devin was, but what Devin is now is scared to death to engage. Nobody wants to see it.
American morale in the sport of boxing is at an all-time low because these guys are brazen cowards and they're completely comfortable wearing their hearts on their sleeves. What does a young man like Rolly Romero want with a 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao or a drug-addicted Adrian Broner?
You don't even call out the guy who beat Adrian Broner in his last fight. You call out Broner. For what? Broner's old news. Broner's washed up.
So just imagine that a 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao goes in there and he beats Mario Barrios, because I'm sorry to say Mario's just not that good. God bless him, and he means well.
But there's a reason Manny's had his eye on him the whole time. You never heard about Manny eyeing Brian Norman or Boots Ennis. It's always Barrios, and it's because Mario Barrios is the weakest link. He's low-hanging fruit. Manny knows that.
And if Manny beats him, you're gonna see a bunch of young guys, just like Rolly, reciting the same spiel about how it's bigger for boxing, and Manny is a legend, when you only want to fight him because he's 46.
Close to 50.
Jaron Ennis may as well abandon that undisputed campaign because he won't get a crack at the green and gold. He won't get a shot at that one. If Manny wins, he might actually fight Rolly. If Barrios beats him, he might actually fight Rolly. Who they won't fight is Boots.
I'll tell you what Boots should do. Forfeit the WBA title. Give it to Shakram Gayasov and get Teofimo in the ring. Because he says he wants you. That's a more high-profile fight than fighting Shakram Gayasov, and we can see now, you ain't gonna get the chance to fight for Undisputed. What you can do...
Teofimo's become quite comfortable saying your name. Tell him to put his money where his mouth is. You're both connected to Turkey in one way, shape, or form. Or another, he can pay for it, he can make it happen, and if nothing else, you can put Teofimo on the spot.
Make him fold. Expose him, either in the ring or outside of it. But as far as Undisputed, that dream is dead.
That is what the resurgence of Manny Pacquiao heralds for this division. These cowards are all going to elect to go after an old man who's close to 50 before they roll the dice with you.
American boxing is a goddamn joke, and it's no wonder that it's in decline.
This ain't your father's era of boxing.